Some people think AI will save humanity. Others think it was the beginning of the end. Welcome to another episode of the Son of a Podcast. As usual, I am your host, and I am joined by my dad, Albert Chavarría.
I am your father.
And in today's episode, as you can probably guess by my intro, we're going to be talking about AI and our future with AI. We'll start off talking about the current position of AI, our feelings about it, and then later on we'll talk about where we think AI will go,
Sounds good.
Feelings about how far it can go.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to this one because this is actually a topic that you and I never spoken about.
Yeah, it's true.
So I have no idea what your stance is on AI. I have no idea whether you even use AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited. Do it.
Let's get cracking then. So obviously AI is quite prominent in our lives already.
It sure is.
I would say we probably use it. I feel like you use it every day.
I do.
If not every other day, and I use it every other day.
Right.
Probably less when I'm not in school, to be honest. How do you feel about AI right now and how people use it right now?
Well, in my case, from a productivity point of view, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I use it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
If not 10 times a day, 15 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
From a sociological, philosophical, and moral point of view, I'm still trying to get my head around it, to be honest, because it's all very, very new.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, I feel very positive. I think it is a game changer. It's going to change our lives. We're starting to change our lives already, and in ways that we can't even imagine. And of course, not all those ways will be good, but most of them I think will.
Yeah.
I have heard all these weird stories and I take them with a grain of salt, and as pretty much everything, if it doesn't affect me directly, I don't really think too much about it.
Yeah.
So right now the way AI affects me is pretty much 100% positive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit and slightly concerned about the amount of energy it consumes.
Yeah.
And what that's doing to our environment and how that's affecting our financial life as well.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that's the extent of my worries.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. From a productivity point of view, I use it mostly academically. So from an academic point of view, I think it's really great up to a certain point, obviously.
What do you mean?
I feel like obviously there is people that do use AI to completely do their homework by themselves, just getting AI to do their homework for them.
Okay.
And there I do kind of see the limitations in it.
Okay.
In the sense of, obviously they're not getting most of the time when the AI does it, it's not the best piece of work because it doesn't have the full context of everything.
And it's not original.
It's not original, of course. And also you're not doing it yourself, so you're not actually learning how to do it, But it is very useful in certain scenarios, like you mentioned, the ecological point of view and the financial point of view as well, with the RAM prices shooting through the roof. Not even shooting through the roof. I don't think there's an
quadrupled, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think there's a phrase for how much they've gone up.
Yeah.
But that is a very big, very, very big problem, which I don't know how it's going to be fixed, to be completely honest with you.
Well, they say that until at least 2028, that's going to be an issue. What happened was the big AI companies have bought 50% of the world's supplies of memory.
That's crazy.
And the suppliers aren't manufacturing anymore. So basically we have a huge shortage of memories, which means that anything that uses memory, from graphics cards to watches, those prices are just shooting up through the roof. And yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest issues. I did read the other day that I think Google has come up with a solution. I'm not really sure what it is.
Yeah.
And how long they're going to take to apply it, or how much it's going to cost to apply it.
Because I remember the other day I was speaking to a friend of mine. He's looking to buy a new computer, and he was looking at the components, and he already has all the components and stuff. And I said, could you show me what it is? Because I know about all that stuff. And he has a good computer, but the thing that really shocked me was he had 32 gigabytes of RAM in in the checkout, and it was 350 euros for 32 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I felt like a really, really old person, because I was like, back in my day, that was like 80 euros.
Like 80 euros. Yeah, well, and it grows exponentially.
Euros, but yeah.
The last piece of hardware we got at work was 64. It was a computer with 64 gigs, and that was almost 1,000 euros.
That's crazy.
That was, in fact, I think it was over 1,000 euros for 64 gigs.
That's crazy. Recently I bought some more RAM, didn't I?
Yeah.
like last summer.
Yeah, and it was only like
And it was
35, 40 euros, something like
yeah,
that
it was
per module.
maybe not 35.
Per module,
per module, yeah.
Yeah, it was as it should be. Yeah.
I really
Amazing.
lucked out in the perfect time to buy.
Yeah. And how do you use AI? I mean, because you say you use it for work, for studying. Is it what to help you understand, or is it to help you do your homework?
So I use it to help me do my homework. A lot of times, especially we do lab reports. So we'll do an experiment in class, and we'll have to do a report on the experiment we did, showing all the procedure, all the results that we got. Anyways, that's beside the point. And the language that we have to use is very specific. It's like the past third person language, and most of the time I'm fine with it, but it is true that sometimes I miss at some points. So I just, whenever I finish my lab report, I tell ChatGPT to
change it into the proper tense.
Yeah, to check and make sure that all the grammar is correct, all the spelling's correct and stuff like that. And if for whatever reason there's a lab report because some of them are quite hard to do, some experiments are quite hard to do lab reports on, I'll tell him like, give me a sample lab report, just so I know what to talk about, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll do an experiment about different thermometers, and you have to compare the thermometers. And on paper that seems fine, but then when you have to do a 5-page lab report, you're a bit like, by the second paragraph, you're like, I compared all 3 thermometers already. What else do I talk about? You know, so that type of thing. And then also when I'm practicing for exams, a lot of times they'll give us the exams, but they won't give us the practice exam papers, but they won't give us the answers. So I'll ask ChatGPT to give me the answers, which isn't 100% correct, because sometimes it does get stuff wrong. So that is a bit frustrating, but it is what it is.
Do you ever use it for research?
Yeah, as well. For example, I have a presentation coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'll be using ChatGPT to help me do research for that, to help me, probably once I get all the information that I want, probably to condense it and how to do the layout of the presentation and stuff like that.
Well, seeing as you use it so much, I think we should do one episode only on how to use AI efficiently and to help with your workflow and to help you. Because that in itself is a whole world, how to do it properly. The problem with LLMs, large language models, is that a lot of people don't really know how to prompt, how to use it properly. That's why they're so unpopular when it comes to hallucinations and things like that. It's hallucinations are getting much better these days.
What do you mean?
Hallucinations is where they make stuff up out of the blue, right? And that used to happen quite often. It's happening less and less. Obviously, the more you use large language models and the more we use AI, the better it self-trains. So the less mistakes it makes. However, if you don't know how to prompt it, or if you don't know how to ask the proper question, then it will give you the answer based on your question. So if it's a bad question, it's going to give you a bad answer. And I think we should do a little episode on that and see how you use it, see how I use it, and then give some very specific tips.
Yeah, definitely. I think
on how to do it.
That is one thing that I have to improve on, how to actually properly use, like you said, use the prompts. Yeah. Because I know you use it very well, and you do very, very good prompts, to be honest, and you'll get very detailed answers compared to me. Yeah. I mean, mine are all right.
Yeah, I mean, I use it at work all the time. I use it for everything. I use it from polishing my emails. I'm not a very good writer when it comes to vocabulary, or at least I'm a slow writer. So for me, it's been a game changer. I can just, write an email and then run it by Copilot or ChatGPT and just say, correct this for me, or make it a little bit more formal or whatever. And it always do exactly what I want it to do. The trick is to make sure that the outcome is still you, right? Yeah. Whoever reads it still knows that it's you. I have a lot of coworkers that have suddenly become the most incredible email writers in the world. Some coworkers that are maybe not native English, and until last year you could tell in their emails, and now suddenly their emails are just absolutely pristine when it comes to language, to vocabulary. Clearly, they're running them by ChatGPT. Nothing wrong with it if they're getting the point across, and if I'm reading the email with information I need to know. But I do find it a little bit sad that that they've lost their personality when they write. Yeah. You do want to hear when I read an email, I do like to see the humanity in that email. Still, I mean, I'll eventually get used to it, I guess.
But in business emails, isn't there supposed to not be humanity? If you get one.
Well, yeah, but if it's a business email with your coworkers, people that you've been working with for a long time,
fair enough.
You don't want to see, dear sir, further to your, it's like, hi Albert, here's what you asked for, that kind of thing.
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
I don't need to be
I
told.
guess I was more thinking about like to external.
Yeah, if I'm writing to somebody I don't know, then yes, then I might make it super formal, and I don't really mind if that email is devoid of personality, because it's not for somebody I know. Mm-hmm. But even so, I still like to give my own personality. I am me. I have a way of speaking and a way of writing, and I wouldn't like somebody to not know that it's me writing. Yeah. Right. So I have to be careful with that. And I've already trained my AI companions to rewrite emails, making sure that their language is still me, even though just polish it a little bit, but still me. So I use it for email. I use it for our media department. I use it for this podcast. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was Claude that gave us the layout for this episode, right? Even though we're practically for sure not going to stick to it.
Well, that's like always. Well, but, that's true. I also use AI for this podcast as well. For whatever reason, I'm stuck with what to talk about, or maybe sometimes I'm stuck how to actually ask good questions about a certain topic. I'll ask ChatGPT to give me some questions, and that will get my juices flowing, and then I'll...
Exactly. I find that it's an invaluable tool for inspiration. Mm-hmm. To help you get started, to get you going. Definitely. Not to do the work for you, never ever, but to get inspired for our podcast. I asked ChatGPT, or I asked AI, and I have already very, very specific prompts for all our video workflows. Mm-hmm. So all the descriptions, the hashtags, the titles, even the thumbnails. I have prompts so that it will automatically do everything, and that's a real time saver. That maybe saves me, and I'm not kidding, maybe 85% of the time that I used to spend on doing both here and at work in our media department. It is a huge time saver because, again, I'm not a writer, so before it might take me an hour and a half to write a description for every single video. Now I don't even have to do it. I just prompt it and it gives me a description. I just have to read the description, tweak it a little bit to make it more human, and off it goes. Absolutely great. Yeah. I use AI with tools to be able to cut the long form videos into short form videos. I use AI to help me out to do presentations at work, to summarize meetings, all the time. I use it all the time. I am very careful with the data protection issues, right? Mm-hmm. Not to feed AI any kind of sensitive information that might get disclosed anywhere. I do use it for financial reports and things like that, but I never feed it the actual information from our financials. Or if I do, I don't put any kind of concepts, so there's just numbers. I got to be careful with that, but otherwise, I'm very, very happy with AI. Yeah. It's not scary. They say that the Gen X's are scared of AI. I'm not really sure if that's the case. I think we don't understand it very well, just like any new technologies. But I've also heard that Gen Z is very skeptical about AI.
Really?
Yeah. I've read the latest Gallup report that just came out. Apparently, it's discovered that Gen Z is skeptical about AI. It doesn't really want to use it because of all this fear of using your personality. And if it's...
I haven't heard that, or at least in the people that I study with, I haven't...
Do they use it regularly?
Yeah, but I feel like it might differ from branch from branch, like humanities. Probably if I went to the people my friends who do humanities and asked them what do you think about AI, they would probably give me a very different answer than my colleagues in my class, because at the end of the day, they are two different, very, very different things. One is writing with your personality and conveying your feelings, whereas when I write, I'm just conveying facts. So it is you don't want feelings to be in my lab reports, Yeah. So
you want to devoid. In fact, you want to make sure that it's not human.
Exactly. That's why you talk in the past third person tense, so you don't convey I did this, we did this. It was this was done.
Right. That's funny. That's funny. Cool. So that's the practical applications of AI in our daily lives. I'm surprised I use it more than you, to be honest. If I was your age at university, I'd be using it all the time.
Well, you have to think, the thing is, I'm scared to use AI because I'm scared of getting caught using it too much,
Okay,
you know?
okay.
Because it's the same as plagiarism, it's taking the same. Let's say I use AI and I use the lab reports 100%, I just put in the raw data and tell me and say, do a lab report, and they catch me, then it's the same as if I went to my friend and copied the same lab report, I would get kicked out.
You get kicked out, of course, yeah.
So...
Yeah, they probably are on the side of caution. They probably say, if in doubt, they'll assume that it's AI and kick your ass, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So you're not scared of AI as such. You're not scared that AI is going to control our lives. You know, are you scared of the future as far as your workplace is concerned? Do you think you're going to find a job after you're a mechanical engineer? Mm-hmm. Do you share that fear with the world or not?
I don't think so. The thing is, right, is I feel like each generation has their own fear of this is going to take over our jobs, right? Yeah. There's obviously going to be jobs that are going to be made redundant because of AI, but it's sad, but that's just the way the world works, you know? Yeah. It happens with every single technological age, but at the same time, it's kind of a balance because AI will take away some jobs, other jobs will probably reappear, you know?
Well, that's it. It's gonna, for every 10 jobs it takes away, it's probably gonna create like 40 or 50. Exactly. That we don't know yet. Yeah, so I share.
It's like everything. I mean, probably when computers started coming around, your generation were probably going crazy. Oh, it's going to take away so many jobs. Yeah. They were probably saying secretaries are probably going to go out the window.
And they did. The classical secretary that used to sit there and take notes from, and sit there with a little pad taking notes for meetings and taking notes for letters that had to be, that's gone.
Yeah.
However, you still have PAs, you still have secretaries, you still have receptionists.
Exactly.
And it's changed. This is exactly the same. I feel quite privileged in the fact that as far as technology is concerned, I've gone through the whole gamut.
Yeah.
I grew up with the advent of the personal computer. Of course, there was computers when I was born, but not personal computers. So I grew up with a PC being born. I grew up with email. I grew up when internet was born, and they're by far the biggest life changers that have been happening for the last few hundred years. And now we have AI, and that's the biggest by far. I think AI is going to change our lives even more than email and internet ever did.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to change our lives forever for sure. Yeah. I mean, the applications are infinite. A proper artificial intelligence that can emulate human thinking.
But don't you find that a bit scary? The emulation of human thinking.
Philosophically, it might be a little scary, if you think of the iRobot and Isaac Asimov and all that, Do I think that a machine can teach itself to be smarter and to outsmart humans and to go against humans? I suppose theoretically it's possible. However, is it going to happen in my lifetime? I very much doubt it.
I'm not necessarily talking about the scary in the sense of end of world, they're going to revolt against us, they're like the iRobots or the Terminators. Not necessarily that, but just the idea of we've created something that can think like a human, has its own...
Not really, I'm not scared about that, not yet anyway.
Because I was thinking, right, the other day I was watching, there's a new Star Wars animated, the Darth Maul Shadow Lord, and they have robots and stuff in there that they talk, and stuff like C-3PO and R2-D2.
I've just about had enough of you. Be malfunctioning within a day, you nearsighted scrap pile.
I was like, those are robots that obviously have emotions, they have fear, they have excitement and stuff, because, well, you can just see when you're watching the movie, right? Yeah. Isn't that a bit crazy? Because then at what point can we, I don't know. Well, I don't know, I'm trying to, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to think of, but how, because it's going to sound crazy, I'm going to say, but how do you distinguish them from humans, if you know what I mean? If they can think, they can speak, they can feel.
Well, I think the whole point of AI as we know it now, the whole point of that evolution is to come to the point where we can't, because that's where it's going to be really, really useful.
Yeah.
Right? The only caveat we have to have, though, is make sure that we always have an off button. Right? If you will do it. We already have it. We already have... I've never seen them, but I do know that you have your AI companions, and they have their place in life. There's a lot of lonely people out there that that need companionship, and if AI can do that instead of a human, because that person doesn't have access to that human element, then so be it. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
As long as you can turn it off. The rest is up to the human. And this is where I think we have to make the distinction, and where we have to be conscious that the human element is there, and that's not AI's fault. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you're a human and you have an AI companion, and you happen to fall in love with that AI companion, which I've heard has happened, that's not the AI companion's fault, and it's not their doing, and it's not their scheming. That's the human being stupid enough to fall in love with a machine.
Yeah.
Right? So just don't do it, and at that point turn it off. It's a bit like an addiction. I'm assuming, like alcohol or drugs or tobacco.
Yeah.
If you know that you're getting addicted, stop doing it, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
Now, right now, as far as I'm concerned, being selfish, the benefits I see in AI are by far
outweigh the cons.
Outweigh the cons, or any kind of scariness, because it hasn't affected me yet.
Yeah.
As far as the jobs is concerned, I'm a 55-year-old adult. I only have, I have 15 years left of working life, and I'm pretty sure AI is going to massively change the way I work. It already has.
Yeah.
Am I going to lose my job because of AI? I don't think so. At my level, when you're a leader and you have responsibilities, that leadership is always going to rely on human decisions rather than machine decisions. So I'm not worried that I'll be losing my job anytime soon. If I was a software engineer, I'd be a little bit concerned. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would do is to change the way I work and embrace AI and use it to be able to get better at my job.
Yeah.
And use it rather than say, okay, I'm a coder, I know how to program, and now AI does it better than me, so I'm going to lose my job. No, I would say, okay, how can I use AI to make me even better?
Yeah.
I think that's the way to embrace AI.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think AI is going to be something that's going to be, instead of replacing us, it's going to make our jobs easier. Obviously, like I said, it might replace something, but that's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
It's going to be implemented into the workforce. Like I said, maybe even lab reports in the future are just going to be written by AI. Frankly, I don't see a problem in that, to be honest with you, because ultimately you're going to have scientists running the experiments and making a conclusion out of the results, and you generally normally get the conclusions out of the results before you do the lab reports.
In my mind, what stands out as a logical step forward with this is to use AI to help you create experiments, right? And this is part of the issue that humanity has, and we have had for the last maybe 70, 80 years since technology started taking over the world, is the fact that we are not able to change with technology. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? So let's say my world, the educational world, right now, the big worry with education is how AI is going to affect it, because already students are cheating, they're writing their essays with AI, and you're basically worried that your students are going to become stupid because they're not learning, because they're using AI for everything. My point of view is like, well, seeing as AI is here and it's not going to go away, instead of complaining that your students are using AI to do their homework, why don't we change the way we teach so that we can use AI to help us out? It's a way that everybody could be thinking. Like probably your world, the world of engineering, could use AI in very, very different ways, rather than being worried whether you're going to be losing your job because robots are going to be doing, are going to be making the machines that you should be designing and all that. It's probably true, but I'm pretty sure that you as an engineer could use AI to elevate your work and to make you a superhuman, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, the world of education could do that, should start doing it already. They're not going to. Education is very, very, very slow in picking things up. And by the time schools and universities even begin to start working on AI policies for them, AI is just going to take over the world, and they're going to be way far behind. I think, apart from the logical uses, the very obvious uses, like, help guides and AI exams, so you can do a mock exam and it'll correct it for you and give you feedback. That's already happening, but that's the easy way out, and that's actually not really education. That's private enterprises creating tools for education.
Yeah.
But the educational system should change, starting now, to adapt to AI and to embrace and use AI in a way that will elevate and help their students become better humans and better, But it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
It's not going to happen. But it could, but as I said, it's not just about education, the educational world. It's about any kind of industry or any kind of world. If you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're an architect, AI is here to stay, and it's a game changer, and everybody should be embracing it and say, how can I use this tool to make me more efficient, to make me more productive?
Yeah.
If you do that, it'd be weird if you actually became obsolete. And I see it around me. I see people are weary about AI and don't really know what to do about it. So I have an advantage over them because I fully embraced it, and my productivity has gone up by so much percentage. And people around me can see it. And they're wondering how I'm doing it. Well, it's really easy. I just ask AI, and I love it. And I use all of it. I use Claude, I use ChatGPT, Copilot at work. I use everything I can, and in different ways. I do a lot of research in my line of work, and when I do it, I'll ask all my sources. Why stick to one if you have four, right? Yeah. So I'll ask Copilot, and then I'll ask ChatGPT, and then I'll ask Claude. It's amazing. It's like having a bunch of little mini geniuses helping you out.
Mini geniuses.
Yeah. So I would encourage people not to be scared of it, to embrace it, to use it carefully. You have to be very careful how to use it, and to make sure that when you use it, it elevates you rather than constrains you. Because that's also very easy. It's very easy to just say, write an email about this and then just send it off without checking it. No, what you have to do is write your own email and perfect it with AI.
Yeah.
Right. Huge difference there. But there's nothing to it. Just learn how to use it. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Almost to finalize this podcast before we start going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
We're talking about what we think AI is going to look like in the future. What would you tell your future self
to do with AI?
Yeah.
What would I tell myself?
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. That's a hard question. Well, I think I'd have more questions than, like, if I had him right in front, if it was my 30-year-old self here instead of you, I would have just a lot of questions.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Rather than tell them something, I would actually have a bunch of questions to ask. It's like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
How are you now? Are you better? Are you worse? Was I right?
Actually doing mechanical engineering?
Or did you lose your job because of it?
I think I would just have more questions about where AI has gone, what it's doing now, if he has a C3PO at home, Yeah, I think that would be mostly it. Yeah, I feel like for me the whole thing is generally we don't know what it's going to look like. Because if you do think about just technology, even 10 years ago, right now it's completely different, and the capabilities that it has is even more than we thought it was back then. Even like, I'm going to take a bit of a niche, but even just gaming, right? When GTA 5 came out, 12 years ago now, we thought that was like the peak of
gaming
and graphics, and it was like, it can't get more realistic than this. And now there's some games where you look at it and they generally do look photorealistic in some parts,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
for sure.
I feel like now when you say, what do you think AI is going to look like in 10 years, for example, most of the time my answer is, I don't know. I feel like it's impossible to...
It's too early. It's too early in the world of AI to know how
and
it's
especially
look like.
When things just start out, like now, like AI and stuff, it's when the capabilities just absolutely shoot up, Totally. Like even, I was going to say 4 years ago, but AI has only been a really big thing for maybe like a couple of years, no? Maybe 2-3 years.
Just a couple of years, and it's changing weekly.
And I mean, the essay that it gave me was shit. I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah.
Compared to now, if I probably asked the same question, it probably would give me instead of a page and a half essay, which back then I was like, wow, that's crazy. They gave me a page and a half in 10 seconds. It probably give me 15 pages.
10 seconds. Yeah, for sure.
5 seconds.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing about the thing about AI as we know it now is that it's self-learning. It learns on its own. The more experience it has, the better it gets. So I think we should do a few more podcasts on AI. I think we should break it down into another podcast talking about practical uses of AI and how to use it, how to prompt properly, and how to use it in certain situations. I think we should also talk about certain specific types of AI that could really affect us. For instance, the image creation AI, the music creation, how it's going to change the world there, because that's something that is important for us, especially music.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm curious to see what you think about that, and maybe even test something out.
Test one of the AIs out in live.
I'd like to talk about that. I think we should break it down into that, and then also talk about human relationships in the world of AI with things like chatbots and AI companions and AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends and all that, and also the world of gaming, because it's something I haven't heard about, but I'm assuming that the next generation of games are gonna have AI fully incorporated. Right? And how cool would that be?
There are some, they're not full-fledged games, but there are mods that you can add to games which have AI incorporated, and you can talk to some of the NPCs in the game.
Exactly.
I remember it's for Skyrim, there's a mod
right?
where you can actually talk to the NPCs and they'll talk back and they'll give you...
Well, imagine that. Imagine a whole game where it's an open world game, Far Cry or Red Dead Redemption, or of course GTA 7 when it comes out in 25 years time. Imagine that, where you're actually properly interacting with an AI person there, and maybe playing the game together. Online gaming, as we know, it could probably disappear, because you won't need human players to be able to play Valorant anymore. You can have your team of 5 AI companions, and they're perfectly human, just like anything else.
I feel like AI in games has been around for a very long time,
Yeah, it has.
The NPCs moving around and stuff. Obviously, that it's compared to the AI that we have now, it's basically sticks and stones,
Exactly, that's what I mean. You have had AI for a long time. You had machine learning, but not in the way it could be right now as a proper. That's a game changer.
Literally.
So yeah, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about
definitely.
that. But I don't know. I'd like to do some research on it and have a whole conversation on that, because I think it's I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
Definitely.
Right?
Well, I think this is a good place to leave it off. We kind of opened the lid on the AI and the AI world.
Exactly.
We kind of, like they say, we just touched the tip of the iceberg.
It was a good general
opening.
We've talked about everything and nothing at the same time.
Well, like most of our
but it's been it's been good for me, because I didn't know your stance on AI. We've never spoken about it before. And thank you for sharing your ideas. Thank you for sharing your...
Of course, thank you. Likewise, thank you for telling me what you think and kind of giving me your ideas of where it's going to go, how it's being used now, especially in the education space, because I know that's very big. Obviously, you work in education, so it's a very big part of your life, and you're very passionate about it, which is very good. But yeah, like I said, I think this is a good place to leave it off. So thank you guys very much for watching another episode of the Son of a Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you agree or disagree, let us know down in the comments, or even if you have anything to say, just let us know. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. We'll leave it here, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.